Hello, today I'm going to be painting some watercolor backgrounds for sketching and for adding paint and for you can use them for collaging, whatever, just to give you some idea of how watercolor works and how you can use it for backgrounds. I put this painting behind me. This is one of my own, and you can see the colors that I'm using in here. These are colors that I love. So I choose them because they make me happy. You can choose whatever works for you. I absolutely encourage you to do that. I'm starting with just a 3/4 inch flat brush, and I've also decided to use my favorite colors. So I have some of them here already on my palette, and because watercolor can be easily reactivated, like this, suddenly it's not solid anymore, it's reactivated. I keep these because I can keep using them, and sometimes you just want a little bit of I just want a little touch of this pink, and there it is. So there's a little tip for you. Now the other thing I like to have handy is a little spray bottle, which I can use to just kind of wake up all the colors that I want to use, and also to wet my paper. So on this side, what I'm thinking of doing is going from the pinker colors into more the blue, maybe some green. I might throw in some yellow. I'm not really sure yet, but I want to start with something like this, which is quinacridone rose, and just drop some in here and there. As you can see, there's wet on wet, which makes it blur like this, and there's also wet on dry, which gives you the solid lines and edges. And I want to do more wet on wet for this because these are backgrounds, and I could just take a brush and go over the whole surface, but I didn't. And you can see where right here, when the spray hit that wet paint, it's gone out, blurred out like that, and I think that's just beautiful. So I'm going to just throw a little bit more in here, and then change color a little bit. Oh, that splashed. Well, that's okay. I usually keep my water over here. Actually, I'm going to do that because I'm right-handed and it's just easier not to reach across my paper. All right. For this now, I want to put in some Opera Rose. It's a nice bright pink. And then being mindful of how colors mix. For example, if I wanted to put in some of this phthalo green next to this pink, and they tended to mix together, see what color I get? A purple, which is totally fine, but you just have to be prepared for that. This is what's going to happen. So let's throw some in. Now, if it doesn't mix all that much, you're fine. It'll just come together. Where it does blend, it'll do its own thing there, and you'll get all that color. It will change on its own. I want to use a little bit of Prussian blue because I want these pages to actually kind of work together. And let's do some of this purple. And I'm just going to draw it across here just so that there's some continuity. Doesn't have to be. I don't need to do that, but I wanted to just give it a try. So let's go up in here. I don't want to mess up that little blurry spot because it's so pretty. Put a little more intensity in here. And like with backgrounds like this, you can do anything you want. You can go any direction you want. Watch how this is moving. It's because there's a tilt on my paper. Here we have another movement here. And it can dry like that. I'm just going to move it over here because there's an awful lot of water in it. And I've left some white spots on purpose. Here we've got also a lot of drifting water, which is no problem at all. Just going to drop a little color in there. And a little bit more of this one. Now sometimes you want to soak up some color or some water or color really, because if you don't, it's going to back up and cause edges, which again, it depends what you want. Now see how this blue has just flowed around here? It's actually still flowing. But if I put the page down, it's going to stop. And then what will happen is the really wet part, as it dries, will push back into the rest of the wet until it reaches a spot that's too dry for it to move anymore. And it will take the paint with it and make an edge along there. So I'm going to just pick up some of this extra water here, because I don't want to spend all day waiting for it to dry. I want to be able to turn the page. Right here, I'm going to put something under here to keep that level so it can dry. Now you see how this edge here is sharpening? That's what I was talking about, because it was quite wet here where it was flowing along, but then it got dry, it hit the dry here, and it kind of like pushes the pigment up against that dry edge, and it can be absolutely beautiful. Another thing I want to point out is this paper has some texture to it, and you can see how it's granulating here. That means that the pigment is falling into the low parts because it's still flowy. So then you get this sort of speckled look. And some colors are they're actually coming out with new granulating colors that do that on purpose. And it gives a really nice texture to a painting. And I'm seeing the same in here with this blue. So I'm going to just leave that page for now. And I'm going to start another one. I want this kind of color. This is actually very wet. And I can see where it's puddling here because the page is curling, which it will always do, because the water makes the paper expand, and it'll always curve and buckle. So I'll pop that over there just to keep it kind of flat. And I want to use these beautiful blue greens. Look how this blooms. It's just gorgeous. And just so these kind of work together, I want to put a little bit more. I think I'll use opera in here. Woo! So of course when it blends with this one, I'm going to get a purple. But look how it spreads. Isn't that pretty? Woo! Just so exciting. Put a little bit more up in here. This also is a very wet edge because the curve of the paper is taking it down that way, so I might have to soak some of that up. And I'm just fine with that. Now, I also want a little bit of green, it's yellow green, which I think is gorgeous. Let's put that down here. Ooh, wow. Isn't that pretty? One of the hallmarks of what I look for in my artwork is I want it to be pretty. And there's a decorating book that I want to get. It's called Return to Pretty, and it's about decorating your home in pretty styles or pretty features, you know. I thought that's kind of me. I want my whole life to be pretty. And that might sound a little bit sappy, but I don't care, because having beauty around me is important. And I think it does something for your soul. The world has plenty of ugliness, and we basically don't need to know about it all the time. I have a bit of an opinion about news and how it's constantly negative. And I just don't need to know about a lot of that stuff because it doesn't enhance my life in any way, shape, or form. All right, have to pick some of this up because I'm going to go underneath these pages and who knows where it'll end up. This looks like the center of the signature. That's the group of pages where the stitching is. So you can see the stitching there. But let's see. And I could take this right off the edge, but I don't think I want to. Look how purple that went. Isn't that pretty? So what I want is a beautiful color and colors that I love. Now, I'm not saying that there are not rich, beautiful browns or coppers or anything like that. It's just that these colors work for me. Now, pay attention to this. I had the green, I put the pink down, and the pink has pushed the green out into a little line around the edge. That's really kind of unusual, but it sure is gorgeous. So this one is just still slightly damp. So now I can go back in if I like and brighten up some colors or kind of move things around, make it a little bit more definite. Here's another little tip. If you're doing wet on dry, which is like this edge here, and I did wet on dry here because it was just barely wet. When that edge is still wet, you can go along with just plain water and soften up the edge and drag it out or move it wherever you want, and you can keep doing that. See how it's made an edge here? I don't have to live with that. I can actually just keep softening it out. Isn't that fun? Watercolor is so much fun. I know people get a little bit intimidated by it because it's a little bit more unpredictable, but it's kind of like, you could say the same about skiing, for example. You never know what's coming up. But if you know how to handle what's coming up, then it's not a problem, right? So when you learn little tricks about how to use the color and the paint and the paper, it's not a mystery anymore. Now, I honestly don't know where this is going to end up, and that's just fine because I'm not at the end. So I can come in here and say tomorrow when I'm in the mood, I can turn this into a representative painting. I can just paint over things. Now, a lot of watercolor is transparent, but so what? Sometimes you want things to come through. I'm liking just about all of this, but this is kind of too big a space. Let me see. I'm just going to put some water on it, and a little bit more of this, and a little bit of this. Well, I'm trying to break it up instead of just being a massive shape in a single color. So again, here's lots of water. I'm just soaking it up so that, number one, doesn't take so long to dry. Oh, look at this. I'm getting a little river coming down in here. It's like a river delta in flood. Now, it's doing this all on its own. So at some point it's going to, like, there's a slight slant on my table. At some point it's going to run out of momentum to flow. And when that happens, it'll just stop and probably spread sideways. So you can see how the paint and the water has pushed these colors out. Look at that. It's going to come right down to the bottom. That's amazing. I didn't think I had that much water in there. However, it just ran into a dam here. So it's going to start spreading whichever way the lay of the land is. And in this case, it's going left because there's a little dip here in the paper. But over here, you can see where the green has mixed with the pink, and the blue and given us kind of a purple. In here, it's pushed a lot of paint out of the way, so the green has mixed in with the pink and then in the green, and this is almost a peach color. And then in this, where this opera rose is, it's made all these little watermark shapes. Okay, I think it's going to stop here. It's kind of puddled itself out. I like this much better. You can see here that this phthalo green is still underneath, but this green, which is a yellow green, on top still allows it to show through where the paint is thin, and it's thin because there's more water in it. And along here as well, where I put the Prussian blue, this phthalo green still shows through, and it's just kind of blends like that. Now on this page, like, I love this, how abstract and how colorful it is. This side I want more color in, I decided. So I've got this deeper color, but this is kind of a big space with a bit of a mix of this pale phthalo green and opera rose, and so I'm going to add some more color into that, and just to give it a little more intensity and shape, I'm going to just take the paint out of the brush like this, and then give it a different shape. Here's another technique. Put the water down first and then drop in the color. And you can even mix colors like that. So I didn't clean my brush out, I just went straight from that one to this one. It'll mess up your pans a little bit, but I always just clean them out if I want a clear full-on color. Look at this. That's almost like a story in itself. So now my question here is, do I want that? Do I want that color? Do I like the way it's developing? I want to put just a little bit of yellow, make it more yellow-green. So I'm using cadmium yellow lemon. That's nice, I like that. But I also want to have some over here so that that's not the only place that it occurs. And I also don't want it to have any hard edges. So I have to keep going back around and softening. The light is actually glaring a little bit for me here. But that yellow will start to look green. And this one is doing a little bleeding. And it looks really interesting. And down here where I had this color, I just want to put a little bit more in there. And some of these shapes that come out are just really special. You can also use a different brush and get different effects, but I think I'll stay with this. And I love this opera rose, so I'm going to just pop some in here in little spots like that. Take some of that out of there and let it flow around. Yes, 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 yes. So what I'm doing here is adding water to the edge so that it has a place to spread to. And I'm going to add a little bit more of the opera rose into here as well. And do the same thing. Just give it a place to spread to. Not too much, or otherwise it gets really drippy. Leave a little color showing there. Take back some of this area here, which got pushed out by that little green river, and put a little bit more over here so that there's balance in the composition. So these are still wet, but these are my backgrounds for now. And what I can do with this is, like I said, I can use it for collage. If you're doing it on a piece of paper that isn't attached to a book like this, which is great. I bought a pack of
papers like this, what you can do is cut out shapes like leaves and flowers or whatever out of these painted backgrounds and then use those in collages if that's something that interests you. So I can't do anything more with this without, you know, I mean, I have it right where I want it at the moment, so except for right here. I want a little bit more of this color right in here. See how purple that looks by comparison? I'm not going to go overboard with that because it's a little bit dark for that spot. I don't want something like right smack in the middle that takes all your attention, so I softened that out. Now I can come in here and make a whole scene out of this, and I think I will probably do that in another video. So thank you for being with me. I hope you'll give this a try. It is so much fun, and I'll see you next time.